Good morning, everybody. I'm your host, Dirty Jobs Mike. We are here. It is Sunday. It is week 2. It is the Blitz. We will be back in 30 seconds. What is going on, everybody? Happy Sunday morning. Happy week 2. Hopefully, you're finding this week as a 1-0 person. But if you're like me, you started out 0-1 because, my God, that last week was nothing like we thought it was going to be. But the joke's on the NFL. You gave us a week to look at this tape. We know what's going on now. On my left, I got my man, Jeff, one of the best analysts in the industry. Jeff, how are we doing this morning?
Doing well, Mike. As always on a Sunday morning, time to get out of that kitchen and rattle those pots and pans. Let's do this, brother.
Let's do that. Let's get our thing done. And down below, as always, my man, Joe. Joe, how are we doing this morning?
Yes, sir. Week 2, the heart's pumping. We got injury stuff to play off of. Week 1, and you said it last night, too, at some point, Mikey. Week 1, there's really not a lot to talk about going into it. You drafted a team. You got your lineup. And you were going based on last year, what we think is going to happen. But now we got, okay, we can play this guy because this guy's hurt, or we should stay away from this guy because this guy's going to play this week. So I like having these little extra nuggets that we get to apply to whether it's our DFS contests or the opinions and the advice we give here on the Blitz for a lineup.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be such a challenge at the beginning of the season. That's why typically you don't even see it be a big deal. Me and Jeff were just talking about this at the beginning of the show. You know, this becomes a really big deal. Bye weeks. The bye weeks, when they start coming down like apocalypse style, getting 8 teams on a bye week or something like that, that's when we really want some crunch time. But I'm telling you guys, we are prepared today. Now that we've and the other thing that we have going in our advantage today is the fact that we don't have a lot of coach speak out there that's leading us in the wrong direction, i.e. Brandon Ayuk won't be playing at all today, and if he does, it will be in a completely limited role. I do have to say, if that is Ayuk limited, I cannot wait to see what unlimited Ayuk looks like. That should be like 16 touchdowns in one game. But speaking of, Joe, you want to go ahead and get us through our injury report? Who are we looking at sitting this today? What kind of advantages are we going to be able to take out of the situation right here?
Yeah, I think there's certainly some DFS opportunities. As we already do know, Austin Eckler's out, so that gives Joshua Kelly the clear start there for the Chargers, and he went for 16 and 91 and a touchdown with Eckler playing last week. So you got to look at that a little bit. Travis Kelce is playing, as is Chris Jones, so we'll have the Chiefs at full strength for the first time this year. One thing that's happened in between our show last night and this morning, it's looking like Aaron Jones has been decreased to doubtful. He's probably not going to play, which means we've got A.J. Dillon, who's ready to take on the role. That feels like a good league waiver pickup if it hasn't already been made in leagues, as he'll get that start against Atlanta. It's looking like Mark Andrews and DeAndre Hopkins will both play this week. Christian Watson out again for Green Bay, it's looking like. So Romeo Doubs, I know, had a decent week last week. Feels like you could probably go back to that well. Breece Hall is coming in as questionable, but it looks like he is going to play. And I'll tell you what, real quick, I'll wrap. That's pretty much it from an injury perspective as far as fantasy relevance as of right now. But, I'm looking at my DFS lineup, and with that flex play, I could put Ayuk in it, who I have now, but I could also put Breece Hall in it. And I'm just in my head like, that's a tough matchup. Hall playing Dallas. Ayuk so good last week. So I know it's not a league thing, but I'm going between Ayuk and Hall, and it seems to be an interesting scenario this week.
Well, I was looking at Twitter this morning, and because I always like to go on there and see what kind of questions people are having throughout the day, kind of arm and prepare what kind of things I'm going to be getting myself into. And that is actually a very common question, is what people are doing with Breece Hall. Is it Breece Hall or X, Breece Hall or this? So I think it's going to be a common theme throughout the day as far as what people are going to be doing, because, man, there was a time there where Breece Hall last week was running at a clip with a 55 yard per carry average, and that wasn't after just one carry. That was after several carries. So the guy was lighting it up, and every single time he was getting the ball, he was just exploding out of it. He looked really, really good. looked really, really healthy. I expect him to actually be a fairly solid play, although I don't like the matchup against Dallas. That does hinder me a tiny bit. I think I'm going to still be, but Ayuk is, on the other hand, I'm very, very confidently starting him. And if you do follow us on DFS, that did actually make some changes for me today. That AJ Dillon made it into a lineup, and that actually made it able for me to upgrade into a Christian McCaffrey, which should be, as always, a very solid play. We're going to go ahead and get started here with the questions, guys, because we got quite a few of them to catch up on today or to get into today. And just a reminder, if you guys have questions out there, make sure you're asking in the comments. And if you're on Twitter and watching this on Twitter right now, hop onto YouTube really quick, and that's where you're going to be able to ask a question where we can see it and be able to get to it right away, just so you know. So just a friend. Jeff, what you got, buddy?
Sorry, real quick before we before we get into the questions. Now, we go off of strategy, research, overall gut feeling, and we are right much more often than we're wrong. Having said that, there was a question last week. You brought up the Cowboys, and I at least have to address that. Somebody came in and asked a question about, do I start the Baltimore D or do I start the Dallas D? And all of us, kind of agreed strategy-wise. I didn't think that the Giants are going to be all that as terrible as they were. Obviously, that was a swing and a miss. So whoever asked that question, hopefully you went against our advice for once and picked Dallas. But if you went Baltimore and you happen to lose, that's on us. We'll take the L for that one.
Yeah, we'll actually be posting Jeff's home address after this, and that'll allow you to either go by his house or send him something to that effect. No, it happens to the best of us. We own it, though. That was definitely a bad call on all our parts. And again, with the Ayuk thing, man, I was confident that he was not going to play. And if he was going to play, it was going to be in a very limited role, and he ended up busting out 2 tutties and making us look like a-holes. We're going to go ahead and get started with these other guys, though. And like I said, you give us a week of tape, it gets pretty dangerous. This is the best 2 analysts I've ever got to work with in the industry. At Video Game Guy says he needs 2 flex in a 14-team half-pay PR. He has Christian Kirk, Elijah Moore, and Khalil Herbert. And this poor guy got a whole ration of crap for saying Alicia Moore. It's like, dude, everybody knows who the hell he's talking about. Shut up. Leave the guy alone right here. But, Joe, I'm going to turn this over to you. Who do you think you got?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would go Christian Kirk here. I know he didn't have the best of weeks last week, but Jacksonville's playing the Chiefs this week, so obviously they're going to have to throw the ball to win this game. And I think, Trevor Lawrence looked pretty good last week. He's got Ridley. He was spreading it around, so I think Kirk's going to have his games. He may not be as consistent as he was last year, especially if Ridley really does organically step into that number 1 role like it looks like he did last week. But I like Kirk there. Moore and Khalil Herbert. Oh man, that's a tough one. I guess I'm going to go with our methodology. The tie goes to the running back. Khalil Herbert, I think, will be a little more active this week, a little better. And I just feel like I'll ride with his guaranteed touches versus not exactly sure what we would get from Moore.
So you're going Kirk and Herbert here.
Yes, sir.
Gotcha. Jeff, what do you think right there?
I'll actually echo that what Joe said. I mean, the KC Jacksonville game has the highest over/under of any game this week, so you have to think they're going to be putting up some points. I like Jacksonville today at home. We'll see what happens. The Chiefs are favored actually in that game, I believe. So I'll echo Christian Kirk because of that reason. They're going to be kind of gunning a little bit, and yeah, I don't like necessarily those 2 choices, but I'll roll with Khalil Herbert because he's the running back in the situation.
Gotcha. Now, so for me, I'm actually going to be leaning Elijah Moore. I think Elijah Moore has a better opportunity. Christian Kirk, the thing that bothers me about him is he's getting in. He's only getting in on 3 wide receiver sets. So when there's 2 wide receivers on the field, he is not one of them. It's Zay Jones and it's Calvin Ridley. Sorry, I was blanking on the name there for a second. So Christian Kirk only being involved in about 40 to 50% of the snaps kind of worries me, where Elijah Moore's on the field the whole entire time. So I lean with the volume for the production there, although I can't argue with these guys because they have a great point that is going to be a game they're going to have to throw the football a lot, and it's going to be a game where you're going to have to throw a lot to more obscure targets than your just your average Travis Kelce's and things like that, So Khalil Herbert, for me, with the emergence of Roshan, I got to lean away from him. So I think I'm starting Christian Kirk. Or no, Yeah, Christian Kirk and Elijah Moore, and it's close between Kirk and Herbert for me, but Moore for me pushes out. But you want to listen to these guys because they outvoted me. We got Christian Kirk and Khalil Herbert for the win right here. Let's see here. At Spoon_W says full PPR. We need 2. We need Debo, Ayuk, or Josh Kelly. Jeff, lead us off.
Well, first, I'd have to go with Josh Kelly right off the bat just because Eckler's out. I mean, Joe mentioned it at the beginning there. He had some good production last week, even with Eckler in the lineup. So the fact that he's the solo running back today makes him kind of a key start there. Debo and Ayuk, based on what we saw last week. The funny thing is, and we've talked about this a lot, Debo, ever since McCaffrey got there, has almost been held irrelevant, sort of. He gets some rushes, he gets some targets. Ayuk seems to be kind of, their main guy to go to more so than Debo, so I'll take Ayuk and Josh Kelly.
Excellent. I actually like that. I like Ayuk and Kelly myself here. And I agree with you. I think Christian McCaffrey devalued Debo quite a bit as far as especially the gadget player out of the slot and things like that. I think McCaffrey took a lot of those. So I'm also here at Ayuk and Kelly. What about you, Joe?
Yeah, definitely the Josh Kelly play, 16 for 91 again last week, and that was with Eckler. This is getting to be already, I mean, and it's only week 2, so it's a lot of what have you done for me lately, and there's nothing to come out and say that it's not possible for Debo to go for 8 and 120 and 2 touchdowns this week, and Ayuk for not. That could certainly happen, but this is already becoming a theme this year with these 2 guys, and it's going to be really interesting. It's always been Debo number 1, Ayuk number 2. It's feeling like maybe this is more of like a 1-1A type thing. And it almost feels like maybe Debo is becoming more of a what do they call it? Deception more than anything, right? Like everybody, these teams have gotten so focused on watching Debo moving before the snap. Is he going to run it? Is he coming out of the slot? How are they getting him the ball? Well, maybe now it's move him all over the place and let's get Ayuk one-on-one coverage on the other side of the field or something like that, which is what you kind of felt like you saw last week. So I think it's a coin flip as far as which one of those 2 guys you start. But at the same time, it's hard to ignore what Ayuk did last week. So, the way I did it with DFS is I went Ayuk again this week. So I'll stay true to that. And I'm going to say Ayuk and Kelly, but it's hard to put Debo on the bench, but it's a really interesting situation there. What do you think, Mikey?
Yeah, no, I think this is going to be the week Debo's going to go off now because of what we just said right there. But that's just typical. That's typical 49ers football right there. That's why they're a very tough team to navigate outside of Christian McCaffrey. And I'm really not sold on the quarterback situation down there yet with Brock Purdy, but my God, he looked good last week. We got our man Trans-Siberian. What is happening? He says, good evening, boys. He won week 1. Thank God. Hopefully you listened to somebody else and played Dubs, because this is another one I felt bad about because Dubs was another guy that was supposed to barely play and be quite limited. And again, if that's a limited Dubs, sign me up on what unlimited Dubs looks like all day. And he says he won week 1 and now to the dilemma for week 2. Standard scoring, we need 3. We got Mooney, we got Dubs, we got Jones, we got Reynolds. We also have Garrett Wilson. Do I throw him? Do I darn throw him in this bunch? Do I dare? I'm sure. Do I dare throw him in this bunch? What do you think, Joe? What are you sitting here?
I think you have to play Garrett Wilson here. It's not like we're talking about other number 1s that you're benching instead. So I understand the Zach Wilson part of it, but I think Garrett's got to be there. Man, I think you got to go Dubs because Watson's out. Dubs proved to be the guy with Watson out last week, so there's no reason to think he wouldn't have that same type of role. People, it's funny. Mooney was the number 1 out there in Chicago. Then they make some moves. Obviously, DJ Moore. Nobody's talked about Mooney this year. Zay Jones had, and Mikey, you brought it up. It was a good point because I had only brought up Ridley there in Jacksonville, but Zay Jones, who got a lot of targets last year when he was on the field there, certainly did that again last week. Made a big play too, if I'm not mistaken. They're going to have to throw. I think I'm going Garrett Wilson, Romeo Doubs, and Zay Jones on this one.
And by the same exact logic, I actually don't have anything to add to that because I completely agree. Those are the 3 that I'm sticking out right here. I don't like playing Garrett Wilson because Zach Wilson as the quarterback terrifies me, especially against that bunch. but I think he has the way higher ceiling than Reynolds and Mooney. If I'm going for a safe floor play, I'm going to play Reynolds right here. But I think that I'm going to be kicking myself in the butt for sitting Garrett Wilson. What do you think, Jeff?
I'll agree on Garrett Wilson and Dobbs with the same logic, but we talked about this last night, man. I like Josh Reynolds today. He had the same number of targets last week as Zay Jones. I think he maybe gets in the end zone because Detroit, when you look at Jared Goff's numbers from last year, home versus away, and I brought this up, Goff had a 109 rating at home, 23 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. On the road, it was an 87 rating with 6 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. I think obviously St. Brown's the number 1 over there, but I think these guys, they're going to be putting up points against Seattle. I think Josh Reynolds probably gets in the end zone this week, so I'm going Dobbs, Reynolds, and Garrett Wilson.
I like that. I like that right there because, like I said, if I was wanting to go for a safe floor right here, it would be Reynolds. I don't mind that play because I think that they're going to have a lot of activity, and I believe it's been a long time since Goff has thrown an interception. I think he's like 47 passes away from breaking the all-time record over Aaron Rodgers. And he said he would have been sooner, but I didn't answer my DM on Twitter. I'm so sorry, man. I'm very, very good usually about that. So it is always 5:30. I'm assuming that's 10:30 our time. But over there in good old Ukraine, that sounds right to me, 5:30. We're here every week, man. We're here at 5:30, and we're here till about 7:30 your time, my man. And it's good to see you again. I love hearing that you're there, safe, and everything's going good. And hopefully we're helping you nail down another championship right there. We got Lizzie Bacon, Texas, which her name on Twitter, I had to put it in parentheses because I respected it so much. Crap bag. She says, Kittle or Higbee. And we're going to go ahead. And she also says she's trying to talk herself down from replacing Higgins with Flowers. Someone talk some sense into me. Jeff, we're going to go ahead and let you lead this off.
I like Kittle against the Rams. They're 8.5-point favorites. I know there's a lot of mouths to feed there. I just like more so gut feeling what Kittle brings to the table more so than Higbee. And then as far as replacing Higgins with Flowers, I don't think that's a terrible idea. We got into Zay Flowers last night. I mean, that guy has emerged as kind of almost the guy down there. Now, we're going off of 1 week, but we all kind of got a little excited about Zay Jones, and we added him in some of our DFS lineups. So that's not a terrible idea, in my opinion.
You know, I'd almost like to see who it is that you also are benching because I have a feeling Higgins should have himself a pretty good week this week too because I expect that the Bengals are going to be able to turn it back around as opposed to what they threw out there last week where they just looked sloppy. They looked disorganized. That Cleveland defense has owned them pretty well for the whole time Burrow's been quarterback there. So that really wasn't too big of a surprise. So I think I like Higgins, but I also like Flowers. I don't think I can. So right here, what I feel like I'm doing is I'm replacing a wide receiver 1 or a wide receiver 2 with the wide receiver 1. And when you're talking about the high volume and they're going to be facing each other, you're going to have, like I said, I got to see who else we're benching because I like them both a lot. And for me, Kittle, I think Kittle should light it up again. Higbee didn't show too many signs of life out there, but with Puka only going to be about 70% out there today, he is a pretty solid play, but I'm not going to walk away from Kittle. He has a really good rapport with good old Purdy. What do you got here, Joe?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think the idea of entertaining Flowers there, I think, makes a lot of sense. It's a hard move to make. You don't want to put Higgins on your bench coming off a bad week. You think since he's probably going to fire back, but especially if this is a PPR, I would have no problem with playing Flowers. But I do think that Cincy offense will bounce back, and Higgins should see some of that. As far as Kittle and Higbee go, it's a good question too. Better question than it really should be. Kittle went 3 for 19 last week on 6 targets. Oops. Higbee had a little more action, but it's an anemic offense in general. I wouldn't be mad at you for either of these either. That being said, I want to slow myself down a little bit because I chose Ayuk over Debo for this week, and I don't want to be too reactionary over what we just saw in a week 1, and that's it. So that being said, I'm going to stick with Kittle here and have a little faith on the guy who's done it for a long time. But Higbee without Kupp, Higbee's the number 1 option there, target-wise for Stafford. So I can understand wanting to get him in your lineup throughout the year.
Absolutely, absolutely. I just, like I said, I can't ignore the upside Kittle brings to the table in that situation. Trans-Siberian says, "You lie to your wife. You don't lie to me. I give you that guarantee, my man. I will never lie to you there as far as that goes, my man. I promise. I did not see that in the DMs. If I would have answered right back because, man, we want you here, Trans-Siberian. You're one of my favorite guys on the show. Have been for some time now. So, and like I said, I always get excited just because I know the situation over there, and just always pretty stoked that you're just safe and able to get out there and play more fantasy, man. It makes me happy. We got X Make It Rain. He says Hopkins or Dotson, and Henry or Laporta this week. Joe, lead us off.
So Hopkins was questionable, but I think he's going to play. So I would go Hopkins there. Help me out. Oh, Hunter Henry or Laporta we're talking.
Right.
Have to be, yeah.
Oh, right. Man. You know, I was reading up on Laporta last night, and I think he's got there is some room for him there as far as targets go. I'm trying to look now real quick. I can't remember off the top of my head exactly what he did last week. Yeah, he went. So Laporta last week went 5 for 39, and he caught all 5 of his targets. So there's some efficiency there. Jeff talked about how good Goff's been at home there. Henry with the Patriots, though, this week is an interesting play. They're playing Miami, so we're going to think that they're going to have to throw to win that game. Man, that's a tough one. I think I'm going to go DeAndre Hopkins, and I think the thing with Henry over Laporta is Henry's got a better shot to get in the end zone. So I will go Hopkins and Henry here.
I don't mind that a bit. Jeff, what do you got here?
Yeah, I like Henry as a favorite target for, or close to a favorite target for Mac Jones there in New England. Not that Laporta can't put up some numbers, but matchup wise, I think Joe's right there. Henry, he's going to get a good amount of targets, probably get in the end zone once. I actually, and hey, this is one of those situations where I could be proven wrong later today, but I like Dotson over Hopkins. There's something about he's kind of like my guy. He had 7 targets last week, 5 receptions. I just think, and actually he should be your guy there, Mike, because you were high on Washington last week and Howell. So I don't mind Dotson over Hopkins there, and strictly it's just a gut feeling that's my guy today.
And actually I was leaning Dotson here because of that very thing. I really like Howell. I didn't really like what I saw out of him last week. I was hoping for a lot more explosiveness coming out of the gate right there. They did not seem to have that going for them. But that said, I think that they just need the right situation to put it together. And I think against Denver, they actually have that shot. As much as I love Denver, they're not looking much more improved. I don't really like the Raiders very much, and I think that the Raiders kind of manhandled them on both sides of the ball there. So that said, I'm really happy playing Dotson today. I really don't have a lot of shares for Hopkins for that reason, just because I don't like older receivers that it's going to be hard for him to be consistent on that offense. And I really don't mind Hunter Henry. I think Joe's right there. I think he's got the highest potential chance of a touchdown, although I've really got my eyes on Laporta, especially in leagues where I have him in Dynasty. I'm really liking the usage, the volume, and the efficiency that he's bringing to the table. So, but I'm playing Henry and Dotson this week myself. So, love it. We got our man, work, game, sleep. He needs to pick one wide receiver and one flex from Lockett, Gabe Davis, Brian Robinson Jr., Algar. What do you got, Jeff?
So, this is a good one. Actually, I really like that. So, between Lockett and Gabe Davis, one wide receiver. Okay, I'm taking Lockett for sure. I think Seattle had a very off week. We know that we saw the numbers that they can put up. Lockett, and then we've discussed this before, had better numbers than Metcalf last year. Not necessarily he was short, maybe 13 yards, but he had 3 more touchdowns than him. So Lockett's certainly the favorite target of Geno Smith. And Ryan Robinson or Tyler Algier. I'll say Algier. He seemed to get. I know that Bijan Robinson is there and he commands a lot of attention. They gave Algier plenty of opportunities and seemed to go to him in the red zone. He's able to punch in, I think, a couple times. So I can see that maybe happening again. So I'll take Algier and Lockett.
I don't mind that a bit. Joe, what do you got?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I have a Tyler Lockett in a lot of my leagues because I felt like he slid down to a really comfortable ADP in most of my drafts, but it was a bad week one. But to Jeff's point, I mean, Lockett is the pillar of NFL wide receiver consistency over the past 5-10 years here. So I don't want to over panic there. Gabe Davis, I'm not touching. I just can't with him until we see some real consistency. I don't even remember hearing his name called that much on Monday night. Never mind actual production. And then, I love it too because Lockett, Brian Robinson, and Algier, I would love to, I'll throw this out there right now. I got to believe that we're going to answer more questions about those three guys in the next 17 weeks. They'll be up at the top of how many times were these guys in a scenario that you were asked about, because it's really hard to crack what's happening there in Washington with the running game. And then to Jeff just kind of played it out. Algier went for 2 touchdowns, over 20 points last week, but obviously Bijan Robinson is the star of that offense. So I think these things are going to keep on coming up because you have to go with a wideout here. I'm going to go Lockett, and I'm going to go Algier for Atlanta over Brian Robinson. I'm still not comfortable with what's going on in Washington offensively yet, and I was encouraged by what we saw in Atlanta. So I'm going to go Lockett and Algier. Mikey, how you feeling about this one?
That's the one I'm actually leaning on too. I like Lockett a lot this week, especially coming off a down week. That guy usually doesn't blank you twice in a row. And then you got Algier was just all over that field last week. I believe he actually out-touched Bijan by 4 touches last week. And, man, he did a lot with the ball when he did. Yeah, he definitely scored twice, and he hit I think he was 84 yards or something to that effect, and he was even catching the ball. So give me Algier. I think he's looking really good this year. I actually had an argument with the guys from TPF here in the chat. I don't know if you guys remember that, but they were saying Bijan Robinson is going to be the one. And I'm like, everybody keeps forgetting about that guy in the backfield who has a 5.5 yards per carry average. I mean, and he carried them last year. I mean, he was the only real bright spot that came out of the Falcons last year. And so we're starting to see they did notice, and he was definitely effective in that role. So,
and they're a good complement to each other too, Mikey.
What's that?
They're a good complement to each other, right? Because Bijan's, catching the ball. Algier's more in between the tackles, from what I understand.
Yeah, and everybody's getting upset that Kyle Pitts and Drake London aren't getting the ball, but why would you? Why would you step away from what's working? I mean, they're eating clock and they're winning football games. That's going to be, wait till the whole NFL is just a whole bunch of people doing the tush push. You can get 3 yards every time. That's a guaranteed touchdown in 40 plays, right? Like,
I'll tell you what, man.
Tush push every single play.
DeAndre Swift was great the other night for Philly, but holy crap, just because, they scored 2 touchdowns on the tush push with Jalen Hurts, and that is really aggravating. I mean, I'm a Hurts owner too, thankfully, but man, that's aggravating with those Philly running backs. They get them down to the 1-inch line, and then they just freaking throw Hurts in the pile.
Oh, he was 12 inches away from getting 2 more touchdowns, DeAndre Swift was. Like, he just barely got tackled outside the goal line, creating both of those situations that they got that. Yeah, that he was close to having himself a night. Yeah. At the Cryptic Venom says, one question for me this week in fantasy football. Says Judy for Tutu Atwell. Doesn't feel outlandish, but I don't know. Am I crazy? So, Joe, we're going to go ahead and let you lead this one off, and we're going to go ahead and treat this like 2 questions, right? Should he sit Judy for Tutu, and is he crazy?
I don't think he's crazy. You drafted, it's not like Judy sucked last week. He just didn't play. He was hurt. Now, that being said, we saw Tutu go for 6 and 119. I mean, they're playing San Francisco this week. We saw what happened to the Pittsburgh offense with San Francisco last week. So I'm not necessarily sold on Tutu Atwell either. I do like the fact that he was actually in the starting lineup. Judy, they got a win coming off a loss. I don't know. This is a tough one. My gut at first, I thought I was going to say Judy. Now, as I'm thinking about it, I feel like Atwell probably gives you a nice chance for a real nice, juicy fourth quarter trash fantasy TD when it's, 27-13 with 3 minutes left. And the Rams march down the field to make it look like a closer game than it really was. I feel like that could be an Atwell thing, which would put you over the edge. They really don't have any other weapons there either with Kupp out. So you know what? I've talked myself out of Judy, and I will go Tutu Atwell here.
I don't mind that at all right there. Like I think Tutu Atwell, especially with a hobbled Puka Nakua, isn't a bad play entirely. That said, I don't like that San Francisco defense very much at all. I really liked what I kind of saw out of Judy as far as attention goes. This isn't a division rivalry game. They should have a little bit of an easier time of moving the football around. I think I'm going to lean Judy here. Jeff, break the tie.
So, well, certainly not crazy. That's actually a really good question, and it's tough to kind of mull over. You guys made some good points there. The San Francisco has a much better rush defense than they do pass defense, and gosh, just what is going on with Russell Wilson? We talked last week. I thought, okay, with Sean Payton there, man, maybe this guy snaps out of it. Put up a kind of a stinker week one, scored 16 points, which was their average last year, which is ridiculous. So I really don't mind Tutu Atwell over Judy because of the injuries Joe brought up. So so give me Atwell.
Like I said, I don't mind Atwell at all. I do like the play, but I just feel like Judy's going to be the number one there. And the other thing about it is if you watch that game, Max Crosby, he is a force to be reckoned with, and he was in that huddle a lot. He was forcing a lot of errors. I don't know. Hopefully we'll see more out of that, but you know me, I'm a Broncos fan first, and then I'm a fantasy fan second. And I've been worried about what Russell Wilson is going to do this whole entire offseason with very low expectations that Peyton can come in there. I mean, you could throw could Peyton Manning, or not Peyton Manning, sorry, Sean Payton, could he coach me to a title? Probably not, because I suck at quarterback. And I think that's what's going to happen with Russell Wilson too, because he did a lot of things last year that I did not think looked very good.
I think, real quick, Mikey, I'm thinking about Tutu Atwell, and I'm thinking about Josh Reynolds and stuff, and I'm thinking about Zay Flowers, and we talked about a lot of these guys with DFS. And I think what I would say is, maybe Judy's probably the right lineup play from a league perspective, but jumping on an Atwell or a Josh Reynolds from a DFS perspective, as far as where their salaries are this week and the production that they put up last week and, slated to put up this week, it might be the DFS slate where some of those guys belong versus, starting them over a guy like Judy in a real league.
Yeah, I don't mind that either. And, it's funny because you say that, and all those guys, am I the only one that's super, super tempted to throw all of them in my DFS lineup today? Because, my God, they're cheap, and they should have respective days. Now, are they going to be huge or anything like that? Okay. But they're not. Oh, whoops.
Oh, that's mine. That's my daughter.
Oh.
See the Taylor. I could tell by the Taylor Swift, and we're decked out. We're actually broadcasting from a room that's Taylor Swift vinyl records all over the place here. But she's not even here right now. But hi, Ava. We love you, baby.
I would have bet good money against that with the way the internet's been going lately, especially the old Twitter and X thing. But that's awesome. Welcome.
That's great.
That's way cool that you got your daughter watching this, man. That makes me excited right there. But yeah, no, I like I said, man, those guys in DFS, they're all appealing, man. I really like all of that right there. Fantasy Cal 69 says Elijah Moore, Najee Harris, Rashad White. We need 2 half PPR. Please help. We got your back, Fantasy Cal. I'm going to lead you off with my man Joe. Joe, who do you got right here?
Yeah, so we're going to go back to the Rashad White again this week. The guy had mass touches last week, right around 20 total, even though he wasn't overly productive. But I think home against Chicago, that's a great matchup for Tampa today. So we're definitely going to go Rashad White. Man, it's funny, Elijah Moore coming up a lot this week, Najee Harris. So Pittsburgh is playing Cleveland on Monday night, correct? Which is going to be a tough physical game. I don't look for Najee Harris to go for 6 yards of carry by any means, but the guy's probably going to get 15 to 20 touches in the end zone, 10, 12, 15 points. I don't know. I don't feel like I'm ready for Elijah Moore, but it feels like maybe I need to be because he keeps on coming up. So I'm going to go White and Najee Harris, but I'm going to keep a very close eye on Elijah Moore because he's garnering some momentum and a lot of asks this week.
Absolutely. The one thing that kind of concerns me about what you just said right there is we saw what DeAndre Swift was able to do this weekend. And so, and that was against Minnesota. And so Rashad White had a pretty pretty lackluster stat line against Minnesota the week before that, which could be two things, right? We could have a situation where he's just not a very good running back. Maybe he wasn't underutilized, but seeing what DeAndre Swift did to that offense or to that defense on Thursday night, I mean, just absolutely shredded him. 176 yards on the ground or something crazy like that. And like I said, he should have had 3 touchdowns at the end of the day. So for me, I don't know if I really feel confident playing Rachaad White. I do like that the Steelers are going to be playing with something to prove because they got their asses handed to them last week as well. Elijah Moore, I do like him a lot, and I liked his target share last week, even with Cooper. I think I'm leaning Moore and Harris here. What about you, Jeff?
So I'm going to start with Rachaad White simply from a matchup standpoint. The Bears' defense is flat out pitiful, and White has become or stepped up. He's the obvious guy there, the running back behind Baker Mayfield. So I think White can put up some good numbers, and Harris, we talk about Najee all the time. For his career, I believe he averages fewer than 4 yards a carry, but he gets 20 to 25 touches a game. It's hard to get away from a guy like that because you know that with so many, it's the law of averages. It's not called the theory of averages. So he's going to have a big game one of these times, and it's going to be against somebody. So I'm going to take Harris and Rachaad White.
So real quick, and I agree with you, Jeff. I'm looking at Elijah Moore, and he had 3 for 43 last week with two rushes for 19 yards. But one thing to look at too is, and I didn't realize, Amari Cooper, he re-aggravated his groin, and he's questionable right now, and that's the Monday night game. So that gets a little sticky, and I would definitely like more if Cooper doesn't play. So that will be something to look at. If Cooper really ended up deactivated for Monday night, I would potentially change my answer to Moore and White and sit Najee Harris, to be honest. I think in that situation, just because of the matchup. But something
Joe,
to keep your eye on.
Joe, you're better than that, Joe. Dude, that was low hanging fruit. Come on, man. Step your game.
I mean,
Good God. Good Lord.
Hey, I'm a dad. This is what we do, right, Ava?
The lowest hanging fruit's usually the ripest. So we got Digital Ronin 82 says, please help. I've been racking my brain for days. Do I start George Pickens now that Deontay Johnson is out? Pickens will be the wide receiver 1, or Michael Thomas? Jeff, what do you got?
I like the logic there with Pickens, and he's the favorite guy there in Pittsburgh as far as wide receivers go. It seems like. And until Derek Carr proves himself here, it's hard to say if Michael Thomas is going to put up the numbers that he has in years past. It is a difficult one, but I say I don't disagree with the Pickens start over Michael Thomas. I think that's probably, Mikey, you mentioned it. They got something to prove. It seems like Pickens is a good target, and so I'll stick with that.
I don't mind that a bit. I like Pickens this week a lot. I did like to see what I saw out of Michael Thomas last week. He was productive. It's good to see him back in that lineup. I think that's going to be a team that once they get it all put together, especially when Kamara's back in week 4, they're going to be really, really forced to be reckoned with. But I do like Pickens this week. I do feel like I said, I really want quite a few pieces of that Pittsburgh-Cleveland game, although it reeks of a defensive matchup being on Monday Night Football. I have some confidence that there's going to be some explosive plays coming out of there in that division rivalry right there. Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, on this one, I think you guys both went Pickens, right? I actually am going to go Michael Thomas here. I think Pickens will be great, but I think it's a tough start to the season for them to go San Francisco and now Cleveland on Monday night. I don't think that's going to be an easy matchup for them either offensively. Johnson out helps Pickens in a way, but he's also going to garner the best cornerback on the other team now if he wasn't already. Michael Thomas had some volume last week. I think it was like 5 for 61. And now they're playing Carolina, which is a decent matchup. So I think PPR, I like Michael Thomas. Standard, Pickens probably has a better shot to get in the end zone. But if it's PPR, I like Michael Thomas.
I don't mind that either. Like I said, I did like his usage. I did like seeing what I got to see out of the guy last week. So I get it there for sure. But yeah, I think I think this is one where you're going to see very, very relatively similar volume. Just a friendly reminder out there, if you're watching us on Twitter asking questions, guys, those questions don't show up on here. You got to get on the YouTube stream. Get on there, ask us anything. We'll get right on it. I mean, that's literally anything. You can even ask us what the weather's like, where we're at, and we might even tell you where we're at. At Real Peasy, we got Josh Kelly or Breece Hall to flex. Like I said, guys, we got some Breece Hall questions.
These are great questions today.
They really are, man. That's a good one right there. Joe, you like it? Let's start it off. What do you got?
This is, I mean, I'm all in my head with Breece Hall from a DFS perspective because, again, still under 6,000 on DraftKings, and it's not going to last long. So you want to take advantage of that. This is hard. So, again, I think PPR comes into play a little bit here. Joshua Kelly certainly has the best opportunity to get in the end zone out of these two because Hall's not really the red zone guy there. They got obviously Dalvin Cook, no Eckler for San Diego or for the Chargers. We've already talked about that today. So I think standard Joshua Kelly for sure. God, it's hard to sit Breece Hall, but man, I think you got to go Joshua Kelly. It's just a better matchup in general. Tennessee. He's got a better shot to get in the end zone. He's lined up to get 15 to 20 touches, where Hall, he's still on a pitch count. They're playing a great defense, obviously, at Dallas, and he's not getting the red zone touches right off the bat because of Dalvin Cook. So as hard as this is to say, I think you got to go Joshua Kelly this week.
I don't mind that a bit, man. I do like Josh Kelly. I think that he's just the volume play alone. It's not that I'm anything against Breece Hall. I think this is another one of those situations is I'd like to know who else you have on your team because I wouldn't mind 1 and 2, Josh Kelly and Breece Hall. So let alone in my flex, I don't mind either one of these guys. I'm actually very stoked to have one of these guys in my flex, but I think I'd be able to find room to get him in my running back 2 slot depending on who I had. What about you, Jeff?
Yeah, this is definitely a good question. You just got to look at who has more opportunity or potential more opportunity. I think with Breece Hall, you got Dalvin Cook there. They're playing the Cowboys. Yes, he did very well last week. We always talk about not falling into pitfalls and basing your picks this week off of solely what happened last week. He broke off a couple of really long ones. Now, I don't know if that can happen against the Dallas defense. So just from an opportunity standpoint, with Josh Kelly being the only guy there and a better matchup seemingly against the other defense, I think Kelly just from volume. Now, not to say that we may be proven wrong with Breece Hall. He might bust a couple like that again, but the odds are the Dallas defense is going to be a little bit better than Kelly's going up against Tennessee. So
I'd love to see Breece Hall have a bad week this week. And then I'll tell you something right now. Pounce on one not great Breece Hall week from a league perspective and then trade for him. Get the value knocked down a little bit and now make the deal for him because they've already talked about ramping him up. He looks phenomenal already, but I'm afraid for him too coming off the ACL, watching him go 80 yards the other night on one run. But, I mean, the guy's fire. It's just a matter of the right time when. Maybe it's not this week, but it's going to be in the future for sure. Kelly's just got a really nice situation lined up for him this week with the Eckler injury and the matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can even turn him into Breece Hall, something like that. If you have one good week and one bad week, that would be a really, really good flip right there. And likely a doable flip. Another one, we got RB89RB says Jamal Williams or Josh Kelly. Are you changing your mind here, Joe?
Man, this is great too because I love Jamal Williams. This is the best. Let me tell you something right now. This is approximately my 20th Blitz. And I can tell you right now, without a shadow of a doubt, this is the toughest set of scenario questions we've ever gotten in the 20 of the shows that I've done. This is another great one. And I was so high on Jamal Williams last week, and I still am. It's a great matchup because they're playing Carolina this week and no Kamara. I really do believe Williams is going to get in the end zone for them. That's why they have him there with no Kamara for these first few weeks. But I just, again, Kelly, 16, 91, touchdown with Eckler last week. He's going to get all those touches and more this week. So as much as I'm on the Jamal Williams bandwagon for the beginning of this year, I do still think you got to ride with Josh Kelly.
I like that a lot. I think, like I said, Jamal Williams, I really, really want him to do good this year. He didn't seem like he got it done last week where we wanted him to get it done with a huge opportunity that he had. I'm leaning Josh Kelly here too. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, we saw the potential out of Jamal Williams certainly in Detroit. I think he's got a good amount to prove before Kamara comes back. So he might be feeling the pressure, and I can see him having a big game. But as I said in that last scenario, it's just a matter of opportunity. I think Josh Kelly has a little bit more opportunity than Jamal Williams. Not that I think Jamal Williams will have a bad game, but Kelly just has a better shot at having a bigger game.
Here's my question real quick. Where are the A.J. Dillon questions, right? Like, why is it only Joshua Kelly? It's an interesting thing, right? We've seen Dillon go and be effective, obviously, with or without Aaron Jones. But obviously, there's a lot of momentum for Josh Kelly today, fantasy-wise. But we haven't had one A.J. Dillon scenario yet. I find that
well, I'll tell you why, Joe. Because I had Dillon on my team last year. He was an enormous disappointment. The hell with that guy. He sucks. Nothing's going to happen this week. Dillon sucks. Forget about it. Don't ask any questions about him, period.
A.J. Dillon ain't walking through that door, everybody.
I love me some A.J. Dillon today. I've got him in my daily fantasy. Just throw that out there. Our man Trans-Siberian says we need to come up to a conclusion, a consensus on his third wide receiver, Reynolds or Zay Jones. He needs a majority answer. Also, what states are you from? I'm from Florida, and I'm sticking with Zay Jones because I think Zay Jones gets it done. Duval, baby. Jeff, what do you think?
Well, I grew up in Massachusetts, down the road from Joseph, down below me. But now I live in South Carolina for the last 3 years. And so, and as far as that question is concerned, because of my logic before with the Lions being at home and St. Brown getting a lot of attention, especially from a DFS stand, that's a tough one. But I like Reynolds a lot this week, so I'll take Reynolds, even though it's you can't lose in that one, I think so. But I'll go Reynolds.
You have to go Zay Jones here.
Oh, I have to go Zay Jones.
You have to go Zay Jones here because I know Joe's down below is going to go Zay Jones right here, right, Joe? Tell me you're going Zay Jones.
I am going Zay Jones here. They're going to need to throw the ball, score the ball. Jones was good last week. I do like Reynolds too. Again, I go back to DFS for these guys, and we've already talked about it. But lineup league, I like Zay Jones here.
Here you go, Trans-Siberian. There's your majority right there.
And I'm born and bred in Massachusetts and just moved to Connecticut, Trans-Siberian.
Yeah, and he says, shout out to Port St. Lucie. Is that where you have a place down there? So, jeez. Got all crazy there. Is that where you got a place, Joe?
Oh, no, Captiva.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Oh, yeah, Captiva Island. That's right. Yeah, but no, shout out to you, Trans-Siberian. We love you, man. Hopefully we all swayed Jeff enough to get him to go to Zay Jones. Although I agree. I think I'm with Jeff on this one. I think you can't lose on this one. I was just watching through because I have a screen that always plays the post so I can make sure we're not losing any latency or anything like that. That's where Trans-Siberian is from. Oh, sweet. That's awesome. Shout out, man. That's cool. So we would have probably been hanging out if you'd have been over here in the States still. But I don't blame you for not being here because it's kind of turning into a crap show out here anymore. We got Dylan Atkinson or at Dylan T. Atkinson, sorry. Start 2 of 3, half PPR. Rams wide receiver Tutu Atwell versus San Francisco, or Cleveland wide receiver Elijah Moore at Pittsburgh, or running back Gus Edwards at Cincinnati. 2 out of the 3. Jeff, who do you got?
Well, I'll take because of the Dobbins injury. I think Edwards is going to have a good amount of opportunity. Obviously, we always talk about kind of the tie goes to the running back. So I don't mind Edwards there, even though I know it's a half PPR, but I think he gets more touches. Joe brought up a good point about Cleveland, but I think Atwell, for the reasons we said before, will have a chance at a bigger game. Like I said, the San Francisco rush defense is better than their pass defense. I can see the Rams having to air it out because if they get behind. So I'll say Atwell and Edwards.
I don't mind that a bit. What do you got there, Joe?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I probably go Atwell and Edwards also. Justice Hill scares me a little bit for Gus Edwards. I don't think you're going to see Gus Edwards slot right in like he did the last couple of years as the clear-cut starter as he has previously when Dobbins has gotten hurt. But I certainly do believe that Edwards is going to get the goal line opportunities, which there should be some of. So, 10 for 37 and a touchdown for Edwards is probably what you're looking at. And I'll take 2-2 for a bunch of targets again this week also.
J.K. Dobbins probably especially hates Aaron Rodgers right now because his blowout, was not newsworthy come Tuesday morning. anymore, but that was a huge loss right there for a lot of fans.
Every year with them, man, it's rough.
It's crazy because I have absolutely 0 shares of him. And, I traded him like I traded Christian McCaffrey a couple of years ago. And it paid off this year. But, I mean, like, if you look at how we did it with Christian McCaffrey last year, that was a bad idea, But, I mean, it's just those kind of guys that they are so boom and bust, glass cannons. If they are out there firing for you, they are hard to beat. They're going to be putting up 30 points a week very, very easily. And then but then they are just so susceptible to these season-ending injuries that it really sucks. But that said, that's neither here nor there for the question. I'm going to go with Tutu Atwell and Gus Edwards myself. I just like the opportunity Tutu has it. Like I said, with Puka being a little bit hobbled out there, I don't think we're going to get to see 100% of him, although I am still starting shares of him as well. Elijah Moore, while I like him, I like the situation that LA has more.
The Elijah Moore questions, man. I'll tell you that a lot of people are on the fence about that guy.
A lot more people are invested in him than I thought, man. I saw him miss quite a few drafts because he just seems to be quite under the radar. But, man, if you look at his off-season Twitter and stuff like that, the man was barking. He wants that ball. He wants to go out there and he wants to show him what's up. We'll see if Watson can make that happen. We got at Renee_K10. She says, I need 2 of them. Romeo Doubs, Nakua, Terry McLaurin, Dalvin Cook. Joe, what do you know? Who do you got?
I need 2. Romeo Doubs. I didn't realize he had 2 touchdowns last week. I thought he only had 1.
2 touchdowns, and we told him
touchdowns
sit.
for Romeo
Doubs. Sit, Romeo.
Versus the Bears. The Bears.
Well, they're playing Atlanta this week, so it ain't much better. So I'm going to go Romeo Doubs here, and, this is a tough. I'm not going to Nakua with the injury status. So McLaurin or Dalvin Cook. Whew, this is a tough one. Who's Washington playing this week?
Denver, at Denver.
Right, at Denver. Man, this is a really tough one. It'd be good to know if there's PPR here or not, I guess. Now we're splitting hairs. I think I'm going to go Dalvin Cook for the touchdown and go Romeo Doubs and Dalvin Cook and sit McLaurin, which pains me to do that a little bit. I don't love the matchup at Denver. Obviously, rookie quarterback in Washington, too. And I don't know. Dalvin Cook last week, I thought it was kind of odd the way they used him, especially once Aaron Rodgers went out. But, I mean, you did have Breece Hall breaking huge runs. But I like Cook's got the best shot here to get in the end zone along with Dobbs. So I'm going to go Dobbs and Cook.
I don't mind that logic right there. Jeff, what do you got to say about that?
Yeah, but obviously Nakua, Joe's right on that one. You got to make sure you leave his name out of there. Romeo Doubs, just because he's seemingly the number 1 right now, or at least this week in Green Bay. I'm actually going to say McLaurin because the guy's a talented guy. He didn't have a big week at all last week. He didn't do much, but they're going to go to him. And the Cook thing, I don't know how much the Jets offense is going to be on the field. That Dallas defense is a tough one to go up against. And then when you're splitting with Breece Hall, so the opportunities, yeah, can he get in the end zone? Sure. I think McLaurin, though, and especially if this is a PPR scenario, I think McLaurin is going to bust out one of these games here. He is the clear-cut number 1. So I'm saying McLaurin and Dobbs.
I agree with Jeff from the fact that McLaurin's got the higher ceiling than Dalvin Cook. I would definitely agree with that. McLaurin's got the bigger chance for the big game. Safer bet, probably Cook. Big game potential, McLaurin. What do you think, Mikey?
I agree with that take completely 100%. I feel like I'm going to lean Doubs and Cook here as well. I think the thing that is going to be hindering anything that happens on the Jets lineup is Zach Wilson is their quarterback. It's kind of funny that they didn't even address that this week. They addressed it. They only talked about it as a thing. But Zach Wilson, he did not look good. Everybody said he looked poised. He looked like he was throwing the ball. Buffalo handed him that game. On both sides of the ball. They gave over the turnover for starters or the punt, whatever. They have that like really crappy punt. And it's just he didn't do anything on that team. And they should not have won that game. So I don't think that's a guy that's going to be able to get a lot done. I think you're going to have to outlet a lot. I think when we start talking about outlets on the Jets, I really like Dalvin Cook, but Terry McLaurin does have a lot of big play potential. But you are in the no-fly zone, buddy, and that's the Denver Broncos stadium, which I think is Walmart, Invesco Field, Oscar Mayer at Mile High, something like that. I can't remember who all owns the Broncos now. I'm pretty sure every corporation out there has a piece of that. Go Bravos 18 says, who should I start in flex? PPR League. Williams, Denver, or Cooper Browns? Leaning towards Williams due to Cooper being questionable playing Monday night.
Well, thank you for the full service there. You asked the question and appropriately answered it too. So I'm gonna go with his own answer. I agree with him.
I actually agree with that myself, and Ty usually goes to the runner anyways, and plus I hate Amari Cooper. Jeff, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if the Browns were playing, if they were playing any other night besides Monday, you might give it a shot and just kind of see what things look like leading up to the game, or who knows. But because they're playing Monday night, it's the last game on the schedule. You got to go Williams. Period.
Yep.
Huge breaking news, you guys. I didn't know if you saw this come across or not, but buckle up because Clyde Edwards-Helaire is officially healthy today, guys. So you can start Clyde Edwards-Helaire with confidence. And if he's on your lineup, you have not been listening to us this whole offseason.
Yeah. If you're starting him week 2, we got problems.
Right. We also have CJ Stroud look like he's starting. Aaron Jones, Christian Watson, both officially out this week. Will Levis is officially out this week. Kylan Granson, he will be playing. I know there's quite a few people actually waiting on that one right there because Kylan Granson, he was looking actually quite a bit, quite formidable last week and probably a little bit more fantasy relevant than a lot of people are giving him credit for. Definitely a guy to go look at if he's available on your waiver wires right now and you're in need of a tight end. Kylan Granson on that offense has been really good. And Anthony Richardson, he wasn't looking great, but he wasn't looking bad. I think we can actually see some improvements off of that this year.
Yeah, Pittman had
guys,
a nice
that
game.
Actually wraps it up for the
question. I got one.
Oh, we got a question from Joe. Joe's got one on
okay.
the side here.
Half point PPR flex. Zay Flowers, Cam Akers, or Tyler Lockett?
Ooh. I'll jump on that one. Even though as much as I love Lockett and he's my boy, Flowers just seems to be the guy. I'm staying the hell away from Akers this week. I have that same scenario in my league with Joe. So I've got Akers on my bench and I started Flowers over him at flex.
There you go.
I actually was forced to start Kyron Williams in about 3 leagues last week because my running backs on these dynasty teams are decimated. I mean, it was like I'm pulling on the Bud Light guy, hoping that he might hit the field that day or something like that. But I'm like, well, Kyron Williams is at least in the game. And, man, he really looked good, and he looked like he took over that role up there. It's really, really close, man, because I feel like it's a Lockett day, and I feel like it's Lockett all over it. But Zay Flowers, you cannot ignore the production that he has on a team that I think is going to be throwing the ball quite a bit to try to keep up with that Bengals team who's going to be obviously pissed off about the way they played last week. Man, that is tough. I got to go Zay Flowers here too. I'm with Jeff. I'm not Zay, but it is close, man. It's razor thin. It's one of those I don't think you can go wrong.
That's going to be a super interesting fantasy game today, that Baltimore-Cincinnati game, because obviously Cincinnati coming off a shitty performance last week. You want to see Mixon get going. You want to see Burrow get going. You want to see Chase and Higgins get going. Baltimore perspective, they had a cush matchup last week, so it'll be interesting to see how they do against a good team that needs a win. But at the same time, since he scores, so it'd be nice to see Lamar throw the ball a little bit. He's got Mark Andrews back. You got Zay Flowers. What's Gus Edwards going to do? So there's a lot going on in that game fantasy-wise this season.
There really is. And I mean, if you look, there's like quite a few things that are happening that as a result of last week. I mean, we're talking about the 3 number 1 team. I mean, I don't care who you are. If you were talking about who's your prediction for the Super Bowl this season, all 3 of your top 3 lost last week in Cincinnati, Buffalo, and Kansas City. I mean, all 3 of those teams got their asses handed to it. We're looking down at teams like the Jets that won last week, that if they can put it together and keep it kind of intact, Aaron Rodgers does have potential to come back as a very mid to early playoff push, which is crazy. I mean, so if they can stay relevant, Miami made every team that I just put on that list look slow, sloppy, and very, very behind the times as far as what you're going to need to do to win this year in the NFL. So I'm very curious to see what all 3 of those teams are going to be doing today, because there's a lot of implications and there's a lot of fantasy assets on the line right there in those 3 matchups. Hopefully we get a better play. With that, guys, do we have anything else to add to the show before we go ahead and wrap it up?
I think we're good, brother. I appreciate all the listeners and the viewers out there. We really appreciate you guys checking in.
And what better pregame is there than for us to be able to do this, right? Like, I've been with my kids all morning or whatever, but you get an hour and a half to answer these questions, and now I'm raring and ready to go for 1 p.m.
Yeah, nope, I love it, man. It's fun because you get thinking about certain things. This is like, so we do our DFS show on Saturday night. This is what makes my DFS lineup nothing near what it was on Saturday night, because I sit there and, we talk about these players. I get really excited about their opportunities. We change a few things up, and seems to actually pay off quite well, because I'm still doing pretty good over there in good old FanDuel. So that is one thing now. But not speaking of FanDuel, make sure you guys are on there. Hit that promo code triple, Underdog Fantasy, official host of the show, or a sponsor of the show. We love them over there. I got a really good lineup going on there today, man. It's a lot more fun. It's definitely not the same as your daily fantasy. So make sure you get on there. Make sure you're using that promo code. Make sure you're liking. Make sure you're subscribing. Guys, let's have ourselves a fun week. Week 2. We will see you guys next week, Saturday night. And make sure you guys, like I said, like, subscribe, add triple play. Thank you so much. And